When Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakens," he wasn't just speaking in metaphors. He was giving us a map, a key, a way to understand why so many people live their entire lives feeling powerless, as if they are trapped by circumstances, by what the world throws at them. And yet, at the same time, there are others, ordinary men and women, no different from you or me, who seem to rise above hardship, who find strength in the most devastating conditions. What separates these two groups is not luck, it is not privilege, it is not that the world treats one group kindly and the other harshly. What separates them is mindset. It is the understanding that the world you carry inside, your thoughts, your beliefs, your interpretation of experience, shapes the world you experience outside. Think about this for a moment. Two people can walk through the same storm, feel the same rain, hear the same thunder, yet one curses the sky and the other dances in the downpour. The storm did not change. What changed was the meaning each person gave to it. One saw punishment, the other saw freedom. And this is the first truth I want you to carry with you tonight: your perception is not just a reflection of reality, it is the creator of your reality. When I speak of mindset, I am not speaking about a shallow positivity, the kind of self-help slogans that tell you to just smile through your pain or think happy thoughts when your world is falling apart. No. Jung was very clear that true awakening does not come from ignoring darkness, but from facing it, from integrating it. What I am talking about is the power of inner alignment, the willingness to turn inward and ask, how am I interpreting this? What story am I telling myself about what is happening to me? Because the story you tell yourself is the reality you live in. Let me give you an example. A young woman grows up in poverty. She looks at her circumstances and decides, this is my fate. I am poor, and I will remain poor. Life is unfair. The world is against me. That mindset becomes her prison. Every opportunity that comes her way is filtered through that belief, and she sabotages herself before she even begins. Another young woman grows up in the same neighborhood, with the same lack of resources, the same daily struggles. But she says to herself, this is not permanent. This is my beginning, not my ending. These challenges are shaping me for something greater. She takes the same circumstances and transforms them into fuel. One lives in despair, the other builds resilience. The difference is not the outside world, it is the world inside their minds. Carl Jung believed that the psyche, our inner world, is the greatest unexplored territory of human life. He called it a vast landscape where the conscious and unconscious meet, where shadow and light dance together. And within that landscape lies every possibility for how we experience life. When we neglect that inner world, when we refuse to face it, we become victims of circumstance. But when we explore it, when we begin to awaken to the patterns, to the stories, to the archetypes within us, we become creators. The inner world becomes the architect of the outer one. Now, I know this is not always easy to hear. Because when life hurts us, when we lose someone we love, when we face rejection, failure, humiliation, or injustice, our first instinct is to blame the outside world. It feels unfair. And often it is unfair. But here is the paradox: even in the unfairness, even in the heartbreak, we still have power. And that power is the meaning we assign to it. You cannot always choose what happens to you. But you can always choose how you interpret it. And that choice, repeated moment after moment, becomes your reality. I want you to think about a time in your life when you went through something painful, something that broke you down. At that time, it may have felt like the end of everything. But looking back now, can you see how that pain shaped you? How it forced you to grow in ways you never would have otherwise? This is the secret Jung points us to: the outer world may wound us, but it is the inner world that decides whether those wounds become scars that cripple us, or scars that remind us of our strength. In my own life, I have seen this truth play out again and again. There were moments when I felt powerless, moments when I thought life was happening to me, not for me. But when I shifted my perspective, when I asked myself not, why me, but, what can I learn from this? How can this serve me? Everything changed. That shift did not erase the pain, but it gave the pain purpose. And purpose is what turns pain into power. You see, the outer world is like a mirror. It reflects back to us what we believe about ourselves. If we believe we are unworthy, we will find evidence of rejection everywhere. If we believe we are capable, we will find opportunities, even in unlikely places. It is not that the world itself changes, it is that our awareness changes. We begin to see what was always there, hidden by our own limiting beliefs. Jung often spoke of symbols and archetypes, those universal patterns that shape our psyche. He understood that we are not just individuals, but carriers of collective stories. And one of those stories is the story of transformation, the idea that within every hardship lies the possibility of rebirth. When you shift your mindset, when you claim the power of your inner world, you become the hero of that story. You stop being a passive character and become the author. Now, let me ask you, what story are you telling yourself about your life right now? Are you telling yourself that you are stuck, that the world is against you, that nothing will change? Or are you telling yourself that everything you have endured is preparing you, shaping you, strengthening you for the next chapter? Your answer to that question will determine not just how you feel tonight, but how you live tomorrow, and the day after, and the day after that. The inner world is where freedom begins. Circumstances can imprison your body, but they cannot imprison your mind unless you let them. History is filled with people who proved this to be true, individuals who faced unimaginable suffering yet refused to let it define them. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison and emerged not broken, but more powerful, more compassionate, more determined than ever to bring freedom to his people. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, wrote in Man's Search for Meaning. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. These are not just lofty ideals, they are living proof that mindset is stronger than circumstance. So I say to you, if your world feels heavy right now, if circumstances seem overwhelming, do not rush to change the outside first. Begin inside. Ask yourself, what is the meaning I am giving this? What story am I telling? Because until you change that story, the outer world will always feel like a reflection of your pain. But once you change it, once you see that every challenge can become a teacher, every setback a stepping stone, you will begin to notice something extraordinary. The outer world itself begins to shift. It is not magic. It is alignment. When your inner world expands, your outer possibilities expand with it. So tonight, I leave you with this thought. You may not be able to control the storm, but you can always control how you sail through it. The storm may rage outside, but the real power lies in the calm you cultivate within. And when you master that, you will see with clarity what Jung meant, that to look outside is to dream, but to look inside is to awaken. Your mindset is the paintbrush, and your life is the canvas. The strokes you choose to make on the inside will one day be the masterpiece the world sees on the outside. When Carl Jung said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain," he was pointing us toward one of the most difficult and liberating truths of human life. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is inevitable. But how we carry that suffering, how we interpret it, how we allow it to shape or define us, that is where the difference lies between a life consumed by despair and a life infused with strength. Meaning gives us power over suffering. Meaning transforms suffering from something that crushes us into something that carves us, molds us, strengthens us. I want you to imagine this for a moment, two people facing the exact same hardship. Perhaps they lose a job, perhaps they endure heartbreak, perhaps they face illness. One person collapses under the weight of it, says, "This is proof that life is unfair, that I will never be enough." They sink into bitterness, anger, despair. Another person, facing the same exact circumstance, pauses, breathes, and says, what is life asking me to learn here? What is the lesson hidden in this pain? How can I rise from this? The suffering is the same, but the outcomes are entirely different. One is broken. The other is broken open. And that difference is meaning. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived Auschwitz, captured this truth in his book Man's Search for Meaning. He said that suffering without meaning is despair, but suffering with meaning becomes bearable, even transformative. He wrote, "In some ways suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning." And Jung would agree. Because for Jung, suffering was not a punishment, it was an initiation. It was the fire through which consciousness is born. Now, I don't want you to think this means we should go searching for suffering or pretending it doesn't hurt. No. Pain hurts. Loss hurts. Injustice hurts. We are human, and we are meant to feel it. What I am saying, and what Jung reminds us, is that when suffering does come, and it always comes, we have a choice. We can let it harden us, or we can let it deepen us. We can let it convince us that life has no purpose, or we can let it push us to discover the purpose we have been too afraid to claim. Think about your own life. Think about a moment of deep suffering, grief, rejection, failure. In that moment, it may have felt like the end. But now, looking back, can you see what it gave you? Perhaps it gave you empathy you never had before. Perhaps it pushed you in a new direction you never would have chosen on your own. Perhaps it showed you strength you didn't know you had. That is meaning. That is the quiet alchemy of suffering. Jung believed that the human psyche longs for meaning more than it longs for comfort. Comfort may soothe us, but it does not awaken us. Meaning awakens us. Meaning is what gives our lives coherence. Without meaning, pain feels like punishment. With meaning, pain feels like initiation. It becomes part of a larger story. I want to tell you a story. There was once a woman who lost her child. For years, she lived in silence, in grief, in anger. She asked again and again, "Why me? Why my child?" And there was no answer that could soothe her. Then one day, she met another mother, a stranger, who had also lost a child. And for the first time, she shared her story. And in the act of sharing, she found something. She found that her suffering could become a bridge. She began to volunteer with other grieving mothers, to listen, to comfort, to share. The loss did not disappear. The pain did not vanish. But the meaning shifted. Her suffering became a source of connection, of service, of love. And in that meaning, she found power. That is what I mean when I say meaning gives power over suffering. It doesn't erase it. It doesn't make it easy. But it transforms it from something that destroys you into something that expands you. Now, here's the challenge. Many of us are so afraid of suffering, so resistant to it, that we never pause long enough to find the meaning. We numb it with distractions. We drown it in busyness. We push it away with denial. But Jung would say that the very thing you avoid is the doorway to your growth. The wound you refuse to face holds the key to your awakening. The pain you are running from is the exact place where your power is waiting to be born. I know that sounds difficult. It is difficult. But it is also liberating. Because once you realize this, you stop being a victim of suffering. You stop asking only, "Why is this happening to me?" and you start asking, "What is this asking of me? Who is this shaping me to become?" That shift from victimhood to meaning is the birth of resilience. Carl Jung often used the image of alchemy, the old practice of turning lead into gold, as a metaphor for psychological transformation. He believed our darkest experiences, our lead, could, through the process of reflection and integration, be transformed into wisdom, into compassion, into strength, the gold of our psyche. Suffering is the lead. Meaning is the alchemy. Power is the gold. So let me ask you, what is the lead in your life right now? What is the heavy, dense, painful thing you are carrying? And can you, instead of cursing it, begin to ask, how might this be transformed? What gold might be hidden here? Because I promise you, there is gold. It may take time to find it. It may take courage. But it is there. I think about Oprah's own life story, how she transformed the trauma of her childhood, the poverty, the abuse, into a platform of power and influence. She did not deny her suffering. She did not pretend it wasn't there. She gave it meaning. She turned it into fuel. She used it to connect with others, to build empathy, to speak truth. That is what meaning does. It transforms personal pain into collective purpose. And here's the thing, meaning is not given to us. We create it. The world does not hand you a neatly wrapped package that says, here is the meaning of your suffering. You decide. You choose. You write the story. And in that act of choosing, you reclaim your power. So the next time you are in pain, instead of only asking, why me, ask also, what now? What can I learn? How can I grow? How can I serve? That is how suffering becomes a teacher. That is how suffering becomes a path to awakening. Jung believed that suffering could not be avoided, but it could be redeemed. And redemption comes through meaning. Without meaning, suffering is hell. With meaning, suffering becomes the fire that forges the soul. So if you are suffering today, hear me when I say this, you are not powerless. You are not hopeless. You are standing in the very place where transformation begins. You may not see it yet. You may not feel it yet. But if you dare to look for meaning, if you dare to ask, what is this here to teach me, you will find strength where you thought you had none. You will find clarity where you thought there was only chaos. And you will find purpose where you thought there was only pain. Meaning gives power over suffering. That is not just psychology. That is not just philosophy. That is lived truth. That is the story of every survivor, every leader, every person who has ever risen from ashes to build a new life. And it can be your story too. So I leave you with this thought, suffering will come. That much is certain. But what you do with it, that is your freedom. You can let it destroy you, or you can let it awaken you. The choice is yours. Your pain will not define you unless you let it. Give it meaning, and it will become the very power that carries you forward. Carl Jung once said, I would rather be whole than good. At first, when you hear that, it may sound strange. Don't we all want to be good? Don't we want to be seen as kind, as virtuous, as flawless? But Jung knew something most of us resist: life is not about perfection. Life is about wholeness. And wholeness does not come from denying your struggles, your mistakes, your fears, your flaws. Wholeness comes from integrating them. From facing them. From saying, yes, this too is part of me. So many of us walk around carrying pieces of ourselves we refuse to acknowledge. We hide our anger because we think it makes us bad. We deny our sadness because we think it makes us weak. We bury our fear because we think it makes us unworthy. But those parts don't disappear just because we ignore them. They live in us, shaping our choices, shaping our relationships, whispering in our ear. Jung called this the shadow. And the paradox is that the more you deny the shadow, the more power it has over you. Integration is the work of taking back that power. It is the act of saying, I am not only my strengths. I am also my wounds. I am not only my light. I am also my darkness. And in bringing them together, I become whole. Because here's the truth, the struggles you are most ashamed of, the battles you most want to erase, are the very things that can become your greatest sources of wisdom. But only if you are brave enough to face them. I want you to think about a struggle you have carried, something you tried to hide, something you wanted no one to see. Maybe it was a failure. Maybe it was a secret. Maybe it was a part of yourself you thought no one would accept. Now imagine if, instead of burying it, you turned toward it. Imagine if you said, "This is me too. And even this has something to teach me." What kind of freedom would that give you? Because freedom does not come from pretending to be flawless. Freedom comes from embracing your wholeness. When you integrate your struggles, you begin to see that the very things you thought would destroy you are the things that make you most human. The anger you were ashamed of can become passion for justice. The sadness you ran from can become compassion for others. The fear you denied can become wisdom about risk. Nothing is wasted when it is integrated. Nothing is meaningless when it is faced with courage. Now, integration does not mean indulging every impulse or celebrating every wound. It means acknowledging, understanding, and transforming. It means saying, "This is a part of me. But it does not control me. I choose what I do with it." And that choice, that conscious act of integration, is what creates resilience. Because resilience is not built by pretending life is easy. Resilience is built by carrying the weight of life and still walking forward, stronger because you have accepted the load. Think about people you admire most. They are rarely the ones who had it easy. They are the ones who struggled, who fell, who suffered, and who used those struggles to deepen themselves. They are the ones who said, "This will not make me smaller. This will make me whole." And when you become whole, you become unstoppable. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming your true self, requires integration of opposites. Light and dark. Joy and sorrow. Strength and weakness. To be whole is to embrace the paradox of being human. And when you do, something shifts. You stop wasting energy on hiding. You stop running from yourself. And in that acceptance, you find peace. But there is another truth that flows from this. Integration is not only about the past struggles you carry. It is also about the present choices you make. Because no matter what life hands you, you always hold one power that no one can take away, the power to choose your response. Choice is stronger than circumstance. Let me repeat that, choice is stronger than circumstance. We live in a world where so much is outside of our control. We cannot control the family we were born into, the tragedies that strike, the economy, the actions of others. But what we can control, and what will always matter more, is how we respond. And in that response lies our freedom. You may not be able to control whether someone betrays you. But you can choose whether you will live in bitterness or live in wisdom. You may not be able to control whether the job ends, whether the door closes. But you can choose whether to collapse or to pivot, to despair or to innovate. You may not be able to control whether the storm comes, but you can always choose how you will sail through it. Viktor Frankl, whom I mentioned earlier, wrote from the depths of the Holocaust that everything can be taken from us except one thing, the last of human freedoms. To choose our attitude in any given set of circumstances. That choice is your anchor. That choice is your compass. But let's be honest, choosing your response is not always easy. When you are in the middle of suffering, when anger, grief, or fear are pounding at your door, it can feel impossible. And that is why integration matters so much. Because when you have done the work of facing your inner world, when you have acknowledged your anger, your sadness, your fear, they no longer control you. You can choose your response not from denial, but from awareness. You can say, "I feel this. I see this. But I also choose this." That is power. I think of Mandela again, who said, "I never lose. I either win or learn." That is not denial of struggle. That is choice. That is the decision to give meaning to suffering, to integrate pain into growth, to refuse to let circumstance dictate destiny. So here is what I want you to carry with you: struggle is not your enemy. Circumstance is not your master. They are your teachers. They are the soil from which your wholeness grows. And at every moment, you hold the power to choose meaning, choose response, choose growth. Think of your life as a canvas. The struggles are the dark strokes, the circumstances are the colors you cannot erase. But the picture is not finished until you decide how to paint around them. You hold the brush. You choose what story that canvas will tell. And I promise you this, when you integrate your struggles, when you embrace your wholeness, when you claim your power to choose, you will discover a freedom the world cannot give you and cannot take away. You will discover that even in the darkest hour, you are never powerless. Because wholeness lives within you, and choice lives within you. So tonight, as you walk away, ask yourself, what struggle have I been running from that I need to embrace? What choice have I been avoiding that I need to claim? Because those answers will shape the rest of your life. You are not broken pieces scattered by circumstance. You are a whole being in the making. And no matter what the world gives you, you hold the power to choose who you become.